Hi there. Welcome to episode 63 of Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. In this episode, I'm calling it So What, Now What? And what's that got to do with anything? So I called it that because I listened to George Couros at the very outset of this podcast that I'll talk about from Mindset Monday. And he talks about how to apply what you've learned, or applying what you've learned, or just letting it go. And you should take a listen to his episode. It's a great start to my week. And it ended off with, what are you going to do with what you've learned, and being reflective and slowing it down so we're not just consuming and eating, but we are actually doing something with what we are learning. I talk also in here about the fundraising campaign for Ukraine and my now what from things that I am learning about, the so what. And so doing something about that. Okay, without further ado, talk to you soon. Take a listen. Episode 63. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Batsheva Frankel from Overthrowing Education, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood, to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive, or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected.
Hey, PLN, March 5, 2022. Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
All right, we are at the Needle Peak. That's Needle Peak up there at the Coquihalla Summit Recreation Area, and we came for a snowshoe today to get some fresh air. Super spectacular. Fresh Air at 5. Well, no podcast listening, and we started probably about 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and we are way up in the mountains snowshoeing, and it is absolutely spectacular. Just thought I'd say hello today. Hope you're having a great day. I am getting some R&R that I need. Tonight I'm going to sit on the couch and rest, but today we have put in about 4 kilometers already. We'll be a round trip of 8 kilometers and probably about 600 meters of elevation gain. So it's been super spectacular. Hope you're having a fabulous day. I am. Okay, bye. Here for Fresh Air at 5, on the heels of a fantastic hike that you just heard me talk about on the podcast. But if you're listening on the daily, you'll have to maybe, wait till the podcast episode comes out, or go find it on Twitter. And we went for a hike on Saturday. It was absolutely spectacular, where we got to eat our lunch. Snowshoe. We went for a snowshoe on Saturday. So fantastic. All right, so this morning, it's the beginning of the last week before spring break. And that would typically put a flutter in a teacher's step and joy in their face. And for me, well, I got 5 days of a whole lot coming at me with my students, and there's great good things going on, but we're prepping for spring break and providing our students access to their course learning online, even when we're not going to be there, which means that when we get back, I will have a mountain of work to mark. But in the face of progress, we will pursue and keep going and, support our students. So that is something that's going on coming up here soon. Spring break, I am going to take some time off. I'm going to take a lot of time off. I get to go ocean fishing on St. Patrick's Day, which will be super great. And other things that we're going to do. We're going to go snowshoeing this coming Saturday up north of Hope, BC. And so I'm looking forward to that. And it's going to be fantastic. All right, this morning I listened to, check this out, episode 145 with Brian Briggs, and he had on guest Tom Covington as Ryan was away. These guys brought a fantastic episode called Healing the Q Community. And these guys are going to Q in, probably 10 days from now. And, I'd like to come, gents, and have that bonfire on the beach, Brian, but is there a beach there? I don't know that. And also the restrictions and stuff. And getting out of Moose Jaw at this time of year, it's a little challenging, but we can maybe make it, but not going to do it this year. So one more thing coming up. Hang on. One more thing for March 7, 2022. Continuing to talk about the Q event coming up, the Spring Q in Palm Springs. I'd really like to come to that, but due to travel restrictions and uncertainty about whether I can come back to work in the event that I do get COVID, I can't go back to work. And the implications of that from traveling, we're going to just say no for this year. I really so much want to come, guys. And I heard you guys talking about conferencing, and it's one of those wonderful things. I am involved in a community here with Canadian e-learning, and we are having a conference actually in April, so not too far after Q, but we're having that in at the Delta Burnaby in Burnaby, British Columbia, and teachers like myself that teach online are all coming together from around the province and converging on a hotel. And we are going to have a conference, and I'm looking forward to, like Tom said, hallway conversations. So that's something that I really dig because there's so much value outside of a session that you can't program, you cannot put into the program and force to happen. So looking forward to that and seeing colleagues that I haven't seen in such a long time. So there's going to be some SEL work going on for all of us that go and just hanging out. So it's going to be great. I'm presenting on Adobe Creative Cloud Express. I've changed my words about that because I'm a big Spark guy, but Creative Cloud Express, lots of powerful things. And I'm going to be presenting on that at this session at the conference. So I have to rebrand the whole presentation. So that's one of my tasks over spring break. All right, we'll talk to you guys. Have a fabulous day. So many great things to check out check this out, E145 with Tom Covington and Brian Briggs. All right, peace, guys. Bye-bye. Do you hear that? The birds are chirping. This is the one last thing for March 7th, 2022 that I'm going to share with you today as I'm wrapping up Fresh Air at 5. Look at the sky. It's getting light. I'm loving it. Spring is coming. Our garden is popping. And things are starting to grow, and it's so very good. Speaking of starting to grow, what do you do with the nuggets of goodness that you take in your day, at conferences, in places? Does it just fertilizer that sits on the ground, or does it ooze into the ground of your brain and make things grow in your brain? So where am I getting this idea from? This is not a novel. It just came to my head. But I was listening to, like George Couros said, Mindset Monday this morning right now, and as I'm out walking, and now I'm reflecting on what I've heard, and George was talking about exactly the same thing. How do we take in information and then do something with it? There's a phrase that I've heard, so what? Now what? And so, you've talked about something fantastic. Now, what are you going to do about it? You've heard something. So what? You've heard a fantastic podcast. You've heard George Couros at a conference. And I've heard George Couros twice, actually 3 times at a conference, been inspired every time but then I have been guilty of walking away and not doing something with what I have heard. And it has changed me. It has, so it's a process over time that I have, applied some of the things that I've heard from George, but do we actually digest the content like we could? So this is challenging, Mindset Monday, to not just read 100 books, but to read 3 books and actually do something with that information that we're taking in. George, I heard your name on another podcast this morning. You were mentioned on the Check This Out episode 145 podcast with Brian Briggs and Tom Covington as they were reflecting on Spring Q in Palm Springs, and you were a keynote back a while ago. I don't know when that was, but you got up and got your karaoke on. Sounds great. Talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, PLN, March 8, 2022. Do you know what day it is today? Today is International Women's Day. And there's so many important days that are on our calendars that I miss some of them. And I'm honest, I wasn't aware that this one was upon us until yesterday when I saw the Google Doodle change late last night because the world is starting its new day far out in the east, and how that has we can learn from that, and so I learned from Google Doodles, and I became aware that it was International Women's Day, and I'm like, International Women's Day, I should probably do something about that tomorrow, being a man and celebrating the important women that are in my life. First woman that's in my life is my wife, Wendy, and she's awesome and she's great and she does amazing things. And the other two are my daughters, and I'm so proud of both of them for what they do and how they engage their community at school, and my daughter now working, and my other daughter, how she plays rugby and has her community of friends, and it's so important. So who are the important women in your life? And we need to raise them up, and we need to encourage them. Big shout out right now to Cami Cannikins, who is going to listen to this on Saturday. She listens to my podcast every Saturday, and that is a breath of fresh air in my sails to keep me going, because I know someone's listening, and it's Cami, and Cami's making a great difference out in southern Alberta in her school district. So very fantastic. All right, so I listened to episode 50 on Science 360 as Tim Stevenson brings us a reminder that it's International Women's Day, and he brings us an episode of the podcast. This is episode 50 from an episode that he recorded back in September of 2020 with Lily Woodbury, and she is a powerful, engaged young lady that's making a difference in the environmental scene in Canada and on the West Coast here. Take a listen to this. I'm going to tell my students about this morning. Tim, fantastic, and Lily, I appreciate the words you have to say and the difference that we can make as people. Okay, bye. One more thing for March 8, 2022. I just listened to episode 219 of the Teachers on Fire podcast, where Tim asked the question, what is the purpose of assessment? And he collected some thoughts from some educators out there in the Twitter, and brought it together and compiled it all into a nice blog article that sums up why we assess and what do we do with assessment. Why and how do we assess affects a lot of how we practice and communicate the need to be a learner. And so, Tim, thanks so much for the great list. Challenging, my goodness. You guys have lots going on at your school, my school as well. And how do we do what we do to get results out of our students? Not results out of our students, but to grow our students as learners. And that's my goal, is to grow my students as learners and creators of content, as opposed to consumers and just sponges that take it in and don't do anything with it. This has been an ongoing thought for me this week about how and what do we do with the stuff that we hear. I hear lots of great things on Teachers on Fire, And it is awesome and it's fantastic to hear the stories over the years of educators making differences in their spaces. But what do I do with that after I listen? Well, now I'm telling people about it. I'm sharing my learning so that I can, hopefully inspire somebody else to take a listen to the podcast. But, what else do we do about that? Yesterday, when I listened to Mindset Monday on the Innovators Mindset podcast with George Koros, season 2, episode 10, he talks about applying what we learn or being resistant to being changed by what we hear and consume. And so how do we take in information and then do something about it? That's my challenge that I'm facing right now, because I take a lot of content in, but what do I do with that makes a difference? Well, I'm telling you about it. Thanks for listening. What are you doing with it? And tell somebody else to make a difference in their space. All right, peace out. Bye. Talk to you guys soon. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, March 9, 2022. Out here for FreshAirAtFive this morning, and it is a beautiful morning. We've got clear skies, plus 3 degrees Celsius, and I can see a planet in the sky over there. I think that's Venus, and the stars are out. The moon is a thin quarter right now after the new moon, and it's a fantastic, beautiful morning to be out walking. So thankful for this time that I take for myself. And it is selfish time. It's something I need to do for me, and part of fitting into my self-care routine. And if you've heard my story, you know that this is a really important time to me. And when I can't do it, it aches me, and I feel kind of lousy later in the day because I haven't gotten my exercise and I haven't connected through listening to podcasts and reflecting and things like that. So yes, here I am, glad to be here, and it's a beautiful, beautiful day. Okay, so on that note, I just listened to episode 73 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast called The Future of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller. And Jake, you bring us a story about you and your family and the richness that is going on in your family. And it is just absolutely beautiful. And as I was listening, Jake, I figured I'd guessed what you were going to talk about. So, people, go take a listen to Jake's story. Jake is being real and being vulnerable with us, and that takes guts in its own right. And your people, Jake, I'm one of your people out here, and I really like listening to your voice. But Jake, you got to take care of your family and your job, and something has to give. In Balance Like a Pirate by Sarah Johnson, Jessica Cabine, and Jessica Johnson. They talk about the 4 Ps. If you haven't taken a look at that book, take a look. They talk about the 4 Ps and how we got to balance, and things ebb and flow before the 4 Ps. So this is the time to ebb and flow for personal. So thank you, Jake. Appreciate you so very much. Peace, bro. Bye. One more thing, and this is for you, Jake. Obviously, Jake, here's my advice for you as I listen to episode 73 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. If you haven't heard it, take a listen, because Jake pours his heart out and the ache in his heart right now, and what he's going to do about the podcast and about his educational duct tape life. And it's not badness, it's just stopping for now. Stopping for now because you got to balance positional and personal life. Totally fine and good. And we need to do that at moments in our lives. Our professional life and our passion part of our life, that sounds like it's your Educational Duct Tape Podcast work, Jake. You know what? You can put those things aside. All of them don't need 1/4 of your time all the time. As we saw this past weekend from your experience in sharing that the personal took up 100% of your weekend. And that is good. That is good. So I'm saying it's good, Jake. Do I have advice for you? Yeah. Take as much time as you need, Jake. Your people are here. I'm here. I'll be here waiting for you when you get back. And I'm not going to go, Jake, when are you putting out another episode? Jake, how come you're not doing any of this stuff? Because you know what? Our primary job in this world is to raise the little people and care for our family. You got married to take care of your wife, and I'm so thankful, Jake, that you sat down and watched TV with your wife that one Sunday night before you went to bed. So good. So the rest of us, my message to the rest of us is to take heed of Jake's message about slowing down. If we need to slow it down because we can't do it all, then do so, people. So Jake, take your time that you need and don't rush back for my sake. I'll be here. And thank you so very much for the impact that you've had on this guy right here as I walk in the mornings. Appreciate you, bro. I'm serious. Absolutely do. Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Bye. One more thing for March 9, 2022. I just listened to Prayer Rose Possibilities 2.05 with Cami Tannikins as she takes her microphone to Ralston School in Ralston, Alberta, near the Suffield Air Force Base, or the military base there. And she talked with the teacher who is running the connection to the lands option. I can't remember exactly the word that he said, but it's about the option that he has where the students get to meet him and learn about the land and the places around them in Ralston and see the beauty in the prairies that to the unobservant are just a flat land that has nothing to offer. But there is so much to offer in the prairies in Alberta and in the mid west of Canada. And so it's cool to hear Wade Carrier, the teacher there, work with the students, and Cami talk to him about, how they do what they do and the restrictions of COVID, and how instead of going to the big city all the time, heading to Banff and doing all these big field trips that they do, that they had to stay local because of travel restrictions and things like that. And when you're forced to stay local, what do? You look around you and you observe the land right around you and right around your community, and you pay attention to the colors of the sky and the fact that, the sun is coming up earlier right now in the spring as I'm walking at the typical time, and, little things like that make such a big difference. So it was really neat to hear this story and the connection that Wade brings to his students about humanities and social studies and nature and environment and Indigenous learning and things like that. We heard from two students, Parker and Poppy, and they have a different perspective on the program. Poppy's from the UK, and she's with her dad who's stationed at Suffield for training, and so she gets to see a part of the world that she wouldn't see if that wasn't an opportunity for her. All right, thanks, Cami. Have a great day. Okay, bye. Oh, one more thing for March 9, 2022. Okay, I want to give you an update on the fundraising exercise that I've been involved in. And I don't know if I told the whole story last week, but a couple weeks ago, I was compelled, after being in church, to take my fly fishing materials in a hook and to tie a blue and yellow fly to symbolize my thoughts and prayers for the Ukraine and the Ukrainian people in this time of the Russian invasion and the stress and struggle that they're going through. And just to hear the stories out of Ukraine and the 1 million people that have left Ukraine in the past, the first 8 days of the invasion, and it's the largest, migration of people on the planet to date that in such a short period of time. All right, so I've talked about that a little bit and how I tied this fly, put it on my Stillwater's Facebook page, and one of the guys was like, "Hey, Brian, you should make this and tie flies for charity." I'm like, "Oh, how do I do that?" And I thought to myself, and I said, he goes, "If you do, I'll buy 10 flies from you." So I'm like, "How about this? How about $4 a fly?" And so I sent that to him. He says, "For sure, I'll send you the money." So I sat down and I tied 10 flies for him. I went to the fly shop and I bought more materials. I put it up on the Facebook page, and orders started rolling in. And people are like, "Brian, that's such a great idea, a way that we can give back." So the money that I said, 100% of the money was going to go to the of the money that I got from any fly purchase was going to go to the Mennonite Central Community in BC here that has an emergency response arm that works around the world, and I'm going to give that money so they can help the Ukrainian people as they see fit. So the update of the story is that by Sunday afternoon, I tied 125 flies, raised $632 that I donated to the charity, to MCC, like I said, and I'm still tying flies and making a difference in our awareness of the Ukraine and praying for the Ukraine as fly fishers. All right, so that's it. Thanks. Bye. Good morning, Tom. This is the last thing for FreshAirAtFive, posting for March 9th, 2022. And I just listened to episode 15 of No Red Pen with Tom Mullaney. And Tom brings us an episode where he talks about the pros and cons of Canvas, the LMS, and how it's good and it's bad, and his engagement with it and his observations that he's made. But before that, look at this observation. The sun is on its way, and man, that's bright up in the back. It's like as bright as it has been dark for most of this past few months of me walking at this time of day. So it's getting brighter. Spring is coming. Spring break is coming. We have 3 full days of school until spring break is here in my school district in Abbotsford. So we get 2 weeks off, which is going to be great. Looking forward to that. All right, back to Tom Mullaney and episode 15 of No Red Pen and your critique of Canvas, the LMS. And so, Tom, I have had very little engagement with Canvas, but I am very familiar with the Moodle LMS, and because we use that in my district and our online learning system for students around our province from my school. So we can support students at a distance, a lot of places, not just in building students, so I'm familiar with LMSs, and hearing what you had to say about Canvas and the intricacies of it. It has been a bit of my experience, and a number of years ago I was in a workshop with my current principal now, who led the workshop talking about the merits of Canvas, because he was bringing Canvas to our district, and it has taken off a little bit, but not at my school. We have been engaged in the process of integrating D2L into our space because it has become the provincial learning management system, and my school is one of the schools that will be taking that on. So I'm going to be wrestling with a bunch of the stuff that you're talking about Canvas with D2L and how it's different and good, and like Moodle and Google Classroom. Thanks, Tom. Have a great day. Bye. Hey PLN, it's Thursday, March 10, 2022. Can't believe this week is almost over. There's 2 days to go and got a lot to do. Lot to do, but that's life of a teacher, and supporting our students as we move forward. So today is newsletter build day. So my grade 11s and 12s are going to help me build our school newsletter that's going to go out tomorrow. So authentic audience on the work that they're going to do. I collect all the content from teachers in the building and principal, and we put articles in, and then my students do all the desktop publishing in Google Slides. So we are collaboratively in the slide space at the same time, and we all work on that. So that's pretty fun. My grade 9s and 10s are working on understanding fonts and font choice and how the different vocabulary around fonts and some cool things that you can do with fonts as display fonts and body fonts and things like that. So that's what's going on. And then I got, a lot of marking for my online students to do, and exams tomorrow for them before spring break starts, because spring break begins tomorrow for me at 2:00 p.m. tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. Yes, I'm not going to take a break from recording over the spring break. I'm going to try to get out for my walks and be active during that time. So yes, that'll continue. All right, this morning I listened to a new to me, recommended to me by Tim Stevenson, and it's called the Science Pod, PAWD cast. And it's from Jason Zakowski out of Alberta. And Jason brings us conversations about science and curious things and dogs. And so the episode that I ran into today that was the top on my podcatcher was called Spaces Bonus Content. And so Spaces Unleashed. And so he's on Twitter Spaces having a conversation. He talked with John Rush, who's a football player, and they've talked about their dogs for the whole time. I'm not a dog guy, but if you're a dog person, this might be the exact thing that you like to hear. So take a listen. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, John. Okay, bye. One last thing for March 10, 2022. This morning I stepped out the door earlier, half an hour earlier than typical, because my son needs to be at work an hour earlier now, and or half an hour earlier. So I made sure he was up, hit the street, and got out here. And now take a look. The sky is just getting light behind me. Yesterday I got home just after the streetlights turned off. So, you know, it's earlier now, and even next week it'll seem even earlier as my son is starting work earlier. So I'll be out in the dark again for a while, probably, I'm guessing, another month, and then it'll start to lighten up as we really race into spring. So I'm excited about that. I'm out walking this morning. -2 Celsius out here. It is chilly this morning, but not unbearable. And the wind is it's calm, so it's not windy, which is great. And I'm enjoying my walk this morning. As I'm wrapping up, I turned on Just a Teacher podcast from Trav Golter out of Australia. And I think this is episode 46, Trav, as you're talking with Dr. G about goals and habits, and it's part of your summer series. And you're like, well, it's not summer anymore, but we're going to still do this because it's some gems that you need to share and that you need to implement for yourself, and you thought you'd share it with the pod community. So I appreciate that. Dr. G and yourself were talking about goals and how, you know, setting a goal like a New Year's resolution, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, for example, and is like liken it to getting into an Uber and saying, take me away from here. The Uber driver would look at you and go, well, where do you want to go? And you're like, anywhere but here, which is a moving away goal. So this is, to me, this makes sense. I haven't put it into this context or this model before, but the moving away goal is about moving away from something which is good for a short period of time, but then where are you going? What's your plan? You know, your goal might be fitness, might be eating healthier, but moving away from losing weight. What happens when you lose the weight? What do you do? So this is a great episode. Take a listen to people. I'm not done. I got some other parts to listen to, and it's good. Later on the same day of March 10, 2022, out delivering papers right now, and I listened to Craig Kemp on the Ignite EdTech podcast as he had on guest Nancy Squizzeroli-Casarini. I apologize. I got your last name wrong, Nancy, but you talked about your long career at international school and being there and being family and just how good it is to be in one place for such a long time. That was really awesome to hear, and how you grow relationships. So thanks, Craig, for all you're doing and hearing about the courses and the content. And I can't even remember what the topic was that you talked about at the beginning. But yes, another episode of Ignite EdTech podcast with Craig Kemp. Take a listen to his podcast if you haven't, because Craig's got a great show and lots of great information that he provides each week. Have a good one. More papers to go. Bye. Hey, PLN, March 11, 2022. Guess what? It's Friday, March 11. And we made it to the end of the week, and I was looking at the front side of this week, looking from the front side of this week, and wow, I need another 3 days in my week. But by the grace of God, I think I got everything almost done that I had to this week, and was gifted opportunities and things that happened that just made it flow so fantastically. A big one yesterday. Yesterday I walked into my last block, and we have a small crew of editors in my Media Design 11-12 class, and there are 7 students total. Well, actually 7 people, 6 students total, and myself. And we do publishing work for the school. We produce our school newsletter every month, and the content comes to myself through emails from the staff, and I curate that all into a Google Doc, a big piece of paper that's like yesterday's was 46 pages long. It has large pictures and things like that in it, taking up lots of space. But the point is I don't do the editing. I do the curating, and then we as a team sit down and we edit our newsletter and put it together and boil it all down to like 9 pages and make it look nice and pretty. And I walked into class, and because of midterm season going on right now, I had 2 or 3 away. One was away sick. And I had 2 students sitting there as I walked into class. I was like, all right, people, well, we got a newsletter to produce, so we better get at this, and we will, work on this together. I'm helping, and so here's the document, here's the Google Slides, and we got at it. And we were working. And then halfway through class, a couple more came in, and we actually got the publication done early, way faster than I anticipated, because my students had stepped up and demonstrated their understanding of publishing and the work that we do. So big hand clapping to them. Okay, this first segment is about my students. I'm coming back in a sec. Bye. All right, one more thing for March 11, 2022. All right, as I talked about my students a moment ago, you got to go back and take a listen to that, because I was so impressed with how they performed yesterday as we were working in Google Slides and making our school newsletter. I'm out for my morning walk. It's plus 3 degrees. It's actually a balmy plus 3 right now because we've had some cold weather yesterday. And I listened to the FAAF show, episode 107. Okay, I'm going to just say right now, if you haven't listened to the FAAF show before, you got to listen to the FAAF show. And if you haven't listened to episode 107, go and get it right now. You will be inspired. Okay, so it's about hip hop, music, and poetry and identity in our classrooms. And they talked to 3 hip hop artists, the hip hop educators out of Toronto area. And big shout out to the hip hop educators, and they have an album coming out today, March 11th. I heard about this. They recorded this last week, and March 11th is their release date for their album. I'm going to go get it because they put together some education hip hop stuff. And okay, this is me, non-musician guy, talking. I am non-musician guy like Che is gym guy, and I can't speak about musician things. But I was so impressed about the conversation I heard about them talking about creativity and identity, and story is documentation, and story is sharing you who you are, and we humanize people through story, and how it's such an important thing that we tell story and tell our stories and tell other stories. And so part of what I'm doing right here is documenting my learning through my podcast and sharing it with you. So I got to go back and listen to this episode because there was gold in this thing. And the Apologet, and we have Tiggs and Michael. Thank you for your words with FAAF as you share your story. And the last thing for March 11th, 2022. This is the final segment for episode 63 of Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. And I just want to continue on the creativity journey that I've observed in myself over the years as I first identified myself as a creative, and then I've seen myself grow in creation, and how it's a journey, it's a process that doesn't happen overnight. But looking back, you're like, there's a body of work that is in my wake that is evidence of creation. And on episode 107 of the FAAF show, they talked to 3 high school teachers who use rhyme and poetry and spoken word in their class to have students create. I am not an English guy. I'm a science math guy. I am a media guy, and I am learning in this space of how to be a media designer. I'm learning. I'm not an expert. I have a lot to learn, But every day that I go and I try, I learn something else. My students, I take them along this journey with me. I tell them, I haven't done this before, so let's go. Let's see what happens. And sometimes it happens, and sometimes it does not happen. But that's okay, because failure is part of success. Failure is evidence of trying. And so, like Tiggs, I think it was Tiggs in this episode of FAAF Show, said that try is the trail to triumph. And that was recorded on March 3rd, 2022. So that's Tiggs. Gotta reference him properly so that he gets credit for that. But it's so true. It's the trying that is so important. Though Yoda countered that and he said it's not to try, but to do. And so, I don't know. I think trying is important because the trying is like doing if you're actually trying as opposed to weekly trying. Okay, that's all I got for today. FAAF, appreciate you guys and keep on rocking it. And I appreciate you sharing your journey of learning with us. All right, peace. Friday, March 11th. Bye.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.